Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. We're here, we're back at it again, and we're going to get on into it. But before we do, as always, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. You know, I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. With that being said, here's a quick word from our sponsors.
Organic herbs and botanicals, skincare and edibles, wellness for body and mind. The Brothers Apothecary. Fine teas and remedies. Ronald Records. From indie gems to classic hits, discover the heart of local music. With live shows all the time, up close and personal, and regular releases on their in-house label. Ronald Records. Supporting the community, one track at a time.
All right, thank you all so much for watching. Again, shout out The Brothers Apothecary, Ronald Records, and Portland Water. Thanks for keeping us hydrated. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get on into it. Here is today's guest.
Hey, I'm Chef Jefe.
And I'm K'dub'll. And we are ofF.Brand.
ofF.Brand.
Don't forget the dot.
Hello. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Let's go ahead and go in the same order. Why don't you introduce yourselves again a little bit and just kind of tell us your roles in the band?
Yeah. So as Chef Jefe, I'm always cooking up something in the studio. I am a mixing and mastering engineer. I do a lot of our production. And I play guitar. I do vocals, singing and rapping, and make a lot of music with this guy.
Hell yeah. And what about you?
I'm K'dub'll, and I can do both instruments or vocals. Doesn't matter, I do it all. And I do the sax, mainly for ofF.Brand, with some vocals. I also do a bit of keys, and yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah, no, I dig it. And I cannot wait till we dig into more of the sound that you guys all make, because I am super stoked for that part. But let's go ahead and start right at the beginning. What got you each into music initially?
Yeah, well, for me, I grew up in the church, so a lot of like my first opportunities to play music with a group of people was in the context of like praise team music. Mm-hmm. So I do a lot of guitar at church. For a while, I was drumming with a church band. I would play bass every now and then, like when there were too many guitarists. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of like my intro. So I think that, my first, experiences with music. My dad's a guitarist. He would often play for like chapel services or coming over to our school or like around the campfire kind of thing. Music was always in my house growing up. My mom used to be a percussionist, so I kind of got the drumming side from her. My dad plays the guitar. He gave me one of his guitars when I was like 12 or 13, and I started playing some of my favorite songs, and just been making music ever since.
The rest is history at that point. Yeah, it sounds like you were kind of destined for it, whether you liked it or not.
Yeah.
Now, what about you?
Well, I started with music in general back, I guess, in kindergarten when my mom made me take piano lessons against my will. Mm-hmm. So I was, I didn't really do it for fun. I just had to kind of go, and things started getting interesting with music around like 5th grade because I got to join band and I got to pick my instrument. Mm-hmm. So I ended up picking the alto saxophone.
Okay.
And yeah, I've been playing it ever since then. But in college, I actually got to play all kinds of different saxophones. So I've played the alto, baritone, soprano, and yeah, I actually had a lot more fun playing the sax. So that's what kept me going. It wasn't like piano where I didn't really want to go. I had to learn a lot of like technical things like scales and arpeggios. I just did not like those. But like when I got to like jazz, it was like, ooh, this sounds like a lot more interesting.
Yeah.
So I was a lot more focused on learning those particular pieces.
Gotcha.
And yeah, gosh, I don't think I really got any like music talent from my parents, although I love them both. They just kind of told me to get into music because they liked listening to music. And my parents' favorite instrument is the saxophone, I would say. So
Interesting.
I guess they kind of lucked out that their kid was interested in the sax.
Yeah. Well, it's strange that they would have had you start not on that if that was their favorite one. Although I guess learning it in the house at a young age is probably a difficult thing to endure. So learning it at school probably went a long way for freeing up their ears a little bit. So that can make sense.
Yeah. I don't think I would have been able to carry the sax.
Oh, that's right. It's a little bit of a big instrument for a small child.
Maybe the soprano, but
Fair. Is there a bass sax?
yes, there's a baritone, and then in terms of biggest to smallest, it's a baritone, tenor, alto, and then soprano. So the soprano is kind of like a little clarinet.
Yeah. There's no piccolo sax?
Oh man, you know what? There might be, but it's very niche.
Yeah. Well, hey, if anybody knows if there is, put the link for that in the comments.
Yeah, send it to us.
Hell yeah. Hey, there we go. And then I guess I have a couple foundation questions I like to check in with everybody on before we officially get into it. And we'll start at this end, work our way back. This first question is one we ask early. It's one we ask often, and it's definitely a crowd favorite. What was the first album you each ever bought with your own money?
Ooh.
Oh man. I can think of the first one I might have obtained through other means.
We can go with that one.
Yeah. I would say that's probably the one that got me into like hip hop and rap. It was Fort Minor's album, The Rising Tide.
Okay. Hell yeah. Yeah. It's a quality album.
Yeah. I got lucky. I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of great features on that album. I didn't realize until like later. I was just like really infatuated by the beats and like the way people sounded on the beats. And it was such a stark contrast to like the music I grew up listening to, because I was also raised in the church. So a lot of my like stage presence was obtained by playing special music for a bunch of older people. But
A lot of this.
no, not even like clapping. I went to a fairly like conservative church. There was, like a
Gotcha.
lot of older people. So like because I liked more jazzy tracks, like I would usually pick those for my special music, because it was like, oh, I'm playing a jazzy rendition of, Jesus Loves Me, and if you hate me for that, you're going to hell.
Oh, okay.
That kid.
You all must love Jazzy Jesus.
Yeah, you gotta. I'm still glorifying God. So
Yeah,
if you're hating me for that, that's a sin.
There's something in there. We'll have to revisit that off camera. Hell yeah. But no, still quality first album. And what about yourself?
For me, the first one I remember buying would be from an artist, Andy Mineo, and his EP Neverland. He was like, growing up, he's a Christian rapper. And so like, as I was, discovering hip hop for the first time, it was kind of like the compromise that my parents and I worked out. Because I remember like I used to sneak down into my dad's office like late at night after everyone had gone to sleep and would like download different music. And one day my parents like it's like, why is 50 Cent on your little Zune player? And like, you're listening to Akon and what is all of this stuff? And so that was kind of like our compromise. Like, okay, if it's Christian rappers, then you can listen to it. So that was kind of like one of the first artists that really stood out to me. Was Andy Mineo, and that album I still put it on every now and then. I think it's from like 2014, might be almost a decade old.
Damn.
But yeah,
Sometimes there are those early albums that kind of just come back every now and then, and you're like, I get it. Like, even though I didn't get it then, I definitely get it now.
yeah.
Like, I don't know if y'all are familiar with a group called Five Iron Frenzy. They were like a Christian ska band.
Okay.
But then their singer jumped off and started his own thing called Roper. And every now and then I like tune into that because I'm just like, what did I see? And I listen to it, and every time I'm like, I get it. This was good. I just wasn't able to kind of see past certain things at the time. Yeah. And then what was one of the first live shows y'all ever went to that was like the specifically one you wanted to go to? So like you saw it was happening, got tickets, and went to it.
Man, let me think. I remember seeing an artist that my parents and I both liked a lot was Toby Mac. And so yeah, I just remember going to some of his shows and like seeing the full band production that he does on stage. It was really a cool like fusion of live instruments and that hip hop kind of feel. Pop hip hop in terms of the Christian world at least. But yeah, so that was one of the first concerts that I remember like we went to as a family, and I was like super stoked about it.
Hell yeah. Oh yeah, but that was rad.
Yeah.
And what about you?
It's funny you mentioned Toby Mac because I feel like that was one of the first concerts I went to.
Oh.
Well, he was part of a tour called like Winter Jam, and it had a bunch of like Christian artists on the label or on the roster. So like I think Lecrae was on there. I think Crowder. I don't know. There were a whole lot of like pretty good artists that I was listening to at the time. So it was just like being able to go and see all of these people for like not even a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it was like clean music that my parents could listen to also, but it also had, some beats that knocked. So I was able to convince them and we were able to go.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Now, wait, was that also the same one you saw?
I went to a couple different years of the winter tour, but I think it was specifically a Toby Mac tour that he was on when I saw him.
Okay, because I think I've had a few other people on the show mention that exact same show.
Oh,
really?
You went to. Yeah. It's a handful of people who are now kind of in the rap and hip hop scene in this area all kind of started in Christian music as well. So this story is similarly familiar to a lot of people up here. Now, are y'all from up here as well?
No.
Oh, yeah.
I'm from the East Coast originally, born in New York. Most of my childhood was in Portland, Maine, actually.
Okay.
So now living in Portland, Oregon,
so
it's kind of
same but different.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then what about you?
I was raised in California.
Oh, okay. Oh, where at?
Stockton, and then migrated slightly over to Lodi.
Okay, I'm from Sunnyvale myself.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
So not too far.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And then before we officially get into what y'all are doing now, how did the group come to be? How did y'all become the dynamic duo that you are now?
Yeah, so we met through a mutual friend in college. I had known of K'dub'll because he had done some like freestyling for different school events. I remember there was the first time I like knew who he was on stage and gave everybody in the crowd his phone number and was like, text me suggested words. So like, it was like a big like whole school assembly kind of thing. And I just remember seeing that and just him freestyle. I was like, okay, I like what this guy's doing. And then we had a mutual friend that connected us because I had been kind of making more hip hop around that time. And so then, yeah, she connected us and then we met up for the first time and started creating.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I dig that.
And what was it? After we realized we kind of worked well together, we decided to enter an online rap contest. No Sucka MCs. And we had to submit our entry with an artist name. So we had to figure out what to call ourselves. And after a bit of deliberation, we landed on ofF.Brand.
ofF.Brand.
What were some of the ones that didn't make it? I'm always so curious.
Ooh, man.
Wow. I'm not sure.
This was like 6 years ago, so I don't remember many of the initial sketches.
Yeah, I just remember ofF.Brand was the one that stuck out.
Well, it's definitely a good one. And I mean, y'all have, so getting into more you and the president, usually the first question I ask is, how'd y'all pick the name? So since we're already in there and you already kind of gave that story, how did y'all go about picking your individual names?
You want to go first?
Me first?
Yeah.
All right. Well, mine is just a play off of my initials. So it's KWE. So it's just K'dub'll.
Easy enough.
Yeah.
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 What about you?
So I've been through some variations. I can tell you what my original artist name used to be, which was 88, which was just my favorite number.
A good number.
Yeah, it was kind of like, it was the number of one of my favorite football players growing up, Tony Gonzalez.
Shout out Tony.
Yeah, shout out Tony. But yeah, he was kind of like growing up, was kind of like a symbol because he's Cuban. My mom is Cuban. My dad is really into football. The Kansas City Chiefs were his favorite team. So it was kind of like, I don't know, just one of the people that I looked up to growing up. So I started with 88, and then I was like, I don't know if I want to go as a number. I feel like I need a little bit, something different.
Yeah.
And so actually my initials as well are CJC. So Chef Jefe with a J, because I am bilingual. I speak Spanish as well. So it's kind of a little call to that, like being a master chef in the studio.
Gotcha. Okay. No, I dig that. That's all clever approaches.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, ofF.Brand is a cool group name. Like it like aesthetically it's pleasing. I appreciate the period in the middle to kind of give it some, and how you all incorporate it kind of into the way you introduce yourself. I think that goes a long way for everybody, like remembering how it's spelled and things like that and giving it a little bit of individuality, but it's still two very easy words to remember and spell. So I always do this bit where I break down names, and on the scale, it's definitely a solid one. But now let's go ahead and let's talk about your writing process. And we'll break it up into chunks, but we're going to start right at the beginning. So when you get inspired, you're ready to make music. How do y'all go about putting a track together?
Ooh, man, it varies. It can be like sometimes the whole song creating process can take anywhere from like 5 minutes to 5 years.
Fair.
It just depends on, I guess, how we're feeling about it. It's like one of our songs, Scribble Sketch. We wrote that, I think that was our first draft of the song, and it ended up making the final cut just because it was that good.
Yeah.
You know, and another one of our more recent releases, Slow Down, that took 5 years to make. We made that back when we initially met up in Walla Walla, and listening to like that initial demo versus what we released now, it's like, I'm really glad that we waited 5 years.
Yeah.
When we first made that song, we knew that we were sitting on something pretty good. I believe we even like performed it around town
several times.
Yeah. But we knew like there was something about that studio recording that just like wasn't up to par.
Yeah.
And after honing our skills for a few years, we re-recorded it and finally released it.
Nice. Hell yeah. No, it's definitely a solid track. I have some notes about it that we'll get into in a little bit. But then once you guys get a track put together, and I mean, I guess, you know, digging into a little more of the process, do y'all like write pen and paper? Do you freestyle? How do you go about getting the words out there?
Yeah. So, I mean, typically I write in Google Docs, just a little easier. But it also depends from song to song. Like there are some songs where like if I'm just out and about, just driving around town, I often will just try to write it in my head. And like the goal is like, if I can remember it by the time I get home, then it's probably worth writing down.
Okay.
You know, if it was just like a throwaway bar here and there, then it's, you know, not as big of a deal. But if it sticks with me, then it's something that I usually kind of bring back home. And we usually, I would say for probably 80 to 90% of our songs, we revise like meticulously. So I try not to rush the first draft.
Yeah.
I mean, try not to put too much pressure on it.
Yeah.
But just like kind of let it flow out. And then after that first draft, like look through and kind of pick out the theme that I'm seeing through it. And then say, okay, these lines fit the theme. This part doesn't, but these lines do. I really like how I ended it here. So I'm going to build things up knowing that that's the ending just to set it up a little bit better. So we do a lot of revising, a lot of making sure that things are on theme and kind of fit the story or the progression that we're trying to tell in each song.
Gotcha. Hell yeah. And then I guess, so do you do a lot of the production as well, as far as like beat making and things go, or just the like mixing and mastering once it's been recorded?
Both. So I do a lot of production. Lately, I've been doing a lot more like dancey kind of house inspired tracks, kind of like K-Tronada type of vibe.
Okay.
So that's kind of like some of the music we're going to be releasing soon. And then K'dub'll does a lot of production as well.
I was going to say, I know you do a grip of instrumentation as well. How do you incorporate that into the music?
Yeah, so at least my workflow recently is whenever I go and like practice my sax, I record it. So one of the exercises I do is like playing a duet with myself. And if it ends up being good enough, I can just take that recorded take and chop it up and throw it onto something.
So you're just sampling yourself at that point.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And since I play keys, I can lay some chords over whatever I was playing. I tend to shift more toward like boom bap style beats. That Fort Minor album introduced me to a lot of like East Coast artists, and I really like East Coast hip hop beats. Like I just love good like head nodding beats. And like when you break it down to its essential elements, really there's not a lot going on. There's just a few really honed elements, and that's what I like focusing on. Like I can't be adding like 50 tracks on something and expecting it to be great. Like if I have 4 really good elements, I can maybe add another one on top of that, and, you know, build from there. But yeah, sampling myself and then hopping on a beat.
Yeah. Hell yeah. No, I dig that. And it's cool because like when I was listening to your sound, you guys have a really good like balance. It's never like there's one person doing more of a verse than the other. There's never one person stealing the hook for the whole time. Like it feels like you guys kind of like flow meticulously in and out of the music as like a unit. And that's really, I like that a lot. I think that's really interesting, especially because you two have distinct enough voices that it's easy to tell when it's one or the other. So kind of just, you never see what's going to happen next, but it gives it this really interesting movement.
Yeah.
And when it comes to like putting tracks together, or at least like for stuff that you're putting out, do you have like a specific vibe you're usually going for just in general to be like the off-brand brand of sound, or you just whatever sounds good is good?
I mean, we take a lot of inspiration from older genres, so like from boom bap a lot of times. We've been taking a lot of influence from funk and disco lately. The Bee Gees is an artist that we often reference, and especially as we're singing our hooks, just to kind of give that like, K-Dub does this really nice like Bee Gees falsetto kind of vibe that we get sometimes for like the background layers in the track. But yeah, we usually kind of like sift through our instrumentals. We have like a backlog of probably over 100 instrumentals that we've created and just kind of been sitting on for whenever the time is right. So every now and then we kind of sift through and pick one out and then just we always try to fit the vibe of the specific track. And K-Dub was the one that introduced me to the whole mumble test idea.
Yeah, so if you're just mumbling over a beat and it just sounds nice, like that's really what matters to like the ear. So if was it our track, usually we started with a mumble demo. We just recorded it like on my phone in the living room, and we were just like figured out whatever we liked, and then Chef Jefe here yelled sax solo in the in the mumble, and it ended up making the final cut. We ended up putting it.
Hell yeah.
Track.
Hell yeah.
Just felt right.
Yeah.
So yeah, we just wanted to make sure that the grooves are established first, and then sometimes by listening to the mumbles, you actually pick up on certain sounds. So it's like, okay, I'm using the long I sound here. You know, inside, whatever.
Yeah.
Reside.
Hell yeah. No, that's very, I think the Beatles made a point of that where like, I think John would like say like words that weren't the words, just like any word that sounded like a good word. And I think like a famous one is like bacon and eggs or something like that. And then later he would go back and replace the nonsense with sensical things.
Yeah.
And that was how a lot of it got put together, allegedly. I wasn't there. I can't speak on that for sure. But that is definitely, it's not an uncommon approach at this point, but it's definitely one where if you take the example and use it in the way that you guys did to like really like acknowledge where things can kind of exist and stretch out, I think it kind of works out really well. And again, having listened to your music, clearly you guys are on track with that.
Yeah.
Before we talk about some of the music you have available, I am curious to know, how do y'all deal with like creative differences? Like, do you ever like, do two people ever bring something to the table and like each of you are like, or I mean, do you guys just like, how do you deal with that?
Of course. Yeah. But I feel like Chef Jefe might feel the same way. I'm down to sacrifice whatever I wrote for the betterment of the track. So it's like if whatever I wrote like has a really cool flow, but it doesn't actually match the theme of whatever we're talking about, like then I got to rewrite it because it just doesn't make any sense. It just seems like it's been taken out of context.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm always down to sacrifice whatever I've written or created for the better good. And sometimes he'll pitch in with some ideas that are far better than the ones that I was thinking of. So yeah, I like the collaboration.
Yeah. And I think part of also what helps us be able to like set our own, I guess, creations aside, like not take it so personally, is we have these 4 pillars. I might need your help remembering all of them, but we try to have, whenever we're like seriously in the revision process of a song, especially, we have these 4 pillars that we kind of anchor our theme and our sound on. So we always think about what the emotion we're going to evoke when you listen to the song will be. We're thinking about the thematic sound of the track, the focused idea, and then the 4th one,
Universal theme.
The universal theme. So having those kind of 4 like goals that we're pushing toward, you know, when we can agree on those 4 ideas, we can go back to our own writing and be like, yeah, I liked how this section flowed, but it doesn't really match the theme of the song.
Gotcha.
So I might save it for something else later.
Okay.
But yeah, we work pretty well together. It's very symbiotic. Something that we often do as well is like, for one of our new songs that's just coming out, we did this, but we often will like both write a verse to the track, knowing that we only want one verse in a song, and then we kind of pick our favorite lines from each other's verses and fuse it into one verse afterwards.
Interesting.
So we kind of are able to take different approaches and see what the connected theme is throughout.
Yeah. Whoa, that's super cool. I actually really like that. And again, I did spend a fair amount of time listening to y'all's music before you came on today, and that all of the things you're saying are kind of like connecting dots in my head to like what I was hearing. So I really appreciate that. And you know, like I said, I did check out a grip of it, and you got music going all the way back to 2019 on Spotify. So you've been doing this for a minute, and I mean, you got a grip of singles, a couple of albums, and even from the beginning, you had a really good sound. Like it feels really like even like I literally I went back to Royal Blue.
Okay, yeah.
And like listening to that after listening to your most recent track, like I can see that there's obviously progression from time, but the intention has always kind of been there from the beginning. And just I like your sound is just so cool. It's like it's melodic, but there's like strong emphasis on the bars. There's themes. The flow is so dialed, and it all kind of comes together really well. And this is something I have rarely ever said on the show. I may not have said it on the show, but I love your social media presence.
Oh, wow.
It's so fun.
Thank you.
It's so wholesome. Like it feels really inviting. And I am a big fan of the Word of the Day series.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And actually, I have one.
Oh.
I have a word if you guys would like it. Yeah.
Yeah, what you got?
Dodecahedron.
Oh,
Wow, okay.
Dodecahedron.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
a certain number of sides?
Yes. I think don't quote me on it. I think it's 15 or 16.
Dodecahedron.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that just felt like a fun word. So
I like that
I'm
one.
dropping that here. Y'all can use it if you want to. If you do, please tag me so I can know.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I checked out your most recent track, Slow Down, and it's so good. The beat is a vibe. The hook in the beginning is really catchy. And it just everything that goes into it when y'all get into it was just so put together. I love the verses are very staccato, but that like there's those like subtle pitch shifts in the early on, and then just everything about it was just put together really well. And I guess I'm curious because you know you guys said that you did start with it way back in the day and then revised it. What did the change look like? What was it more like originally?
Yeah. Originally it was significantly less melodic. I remember that part. Initially, like when we first started rapping, we would just kind of like when we wanted to have extra presence on the mic, it often would come across as like kind of with like almost like an angry tone or just like, I don't know. So we kind of thought about what we wanted the song to feel like. It really wasn't, we didn't want it to be to come across as an angrier song.
Yeah.
So I just remember just like there were a lot more syllables in the initial rendition, just like trying to prove that we could rap super fast, and but then we just thought about, well, actually the song is literally telling us to slow down. So kind of incorporating a lot more of those like fluttery flows that kind of like phase out into a slower cadence. Just having the little bits of speed,
Yeah.
and the reminders to slow down.
And that was actually part in my notes. I did notice that each line would just kind of start just, and then it would always hang a little bit at the end of each one. And I thought that was a really interesting approach to it. It kind of reminds me of, oh my God, I am the worst with track names.
Okay.
But Your Old Droog does something along those lines for a track. And then also MF Doom has a track like that.
Oh, okay.
Where it just kind of like, it has these like subtle changes and like breathes in the flow itself, and it makes it this like, especially Your Old Droog's version is very a little off-putting, but that's a much more extreme version than what y'all do. But it had kind of that feel to it, and it was. I also liked the arrangement choice, how you guys kind of started with kind of the hook, like it was the hook, but it wasn't the hook, and then you go into this giant multi-layer verse. And then you end with like an extended version of the hook, and that's just I'm particular on arrangements. I think when people take different approaches, it's always enjoyable. So that really stood out to me.
Yeah, that was part of the transition of the song as well. The transformation, the original arrangement was quite different, and the actual like slow it down, slow it down part, it was a lot more like spoken.
Yeah, we even used the like slow down effect and like Logic. So I was like, slow it down, slow it down.
Yep. Hell yeah.
I don't think we kept that though.
No, not quite.
No, but excuse me. You could definitely had a bunch of stuff going on in it that I thought made it really engaging, and it's definitely a really cool track. But I do this bit where I pick out a personal track that I enjoyed. And I'm going long on this one. I'm telling you guys now, I made some notes.
Okay.
And I was going to cop out and just go with the Silly Bus album in total. Because first of all, I'm a big fan of skits. I think it's a lost approach these days. I wish more people did it.
Yeah.
So that whole album was just super engaging for me the whole time. But I decided to dig a little further and actually ended up going with the title track, Silly Bus. It's just the wildest track. I mean, it's
Crazy, yeah.
It is.
the first minute and a half of it is like a mixture of an introduction and a setup to a scene. Like, like it's a very visual track, kind of like Walk In off the Carter album. And then it just kind of goes off the rails from there. You're introducing yourselves throughout the whole track. You're introducing these characters that are on the bus through it. But at the same time, like the hook is just nasty. Like, it's just like, you're like, all right, we're going to stop being goofy for a second and let you know that we're about to kill it. Right. And then you get right back into it. And there's never a moment in time where I couldn't pay attention to the whole track, because each line, each instance, there was no fat in the song. It was just all very particular, very precise, and it's a super fun track in particular, which, I mean, I guess kind of on brand for the whole album, and not off brand for y'all.
Correct.
Yeah. But I like I said, that's me just kind of running down one that I enjoyed. The whole album is really good. If y'all haven't listened to it, pause this, go listen to it, come back. But I am curious to know, what is each of your favorite tracks to perform?
Oh. I would probably have to say for me, it would be Slow Down, just because it's one of those tracks that we honed in for so many years, and like knowing that we used to perform it like 4 or 5 years ago, and it was so different then while it was still unreleased and being performed, just knowing that it's like finally reached its conclusion. And so it kind of it feels like one of our newer songs, even though it's one of the first ones we ever wrote, or at least started writing. And then it's also one where I use my guitar on stage, and then we do a little bit of a different live rendition, which is a little bit more crowd participation throughout the song. So it's one of my favorites to perform.
Oh yeah. And what about you?
Well, I think my safe answer would be Usually, just because I've improved a lot on the saxophone since we recorded that song. So my tone has gotten a lot better, and it's a lot more fun to play live. Like, I play sax like behind Chef Jefe during his verse. And at the end, we get the whole crowd to do like a call and response thing.
Oh, hell yeah.
With it. But one of our unreleased tracks that we probably have to work on, Way Up, was also really fun to perform because the melody is fairly simple and we could usually get a venue to sing it back by the end of the song.
Oh, that's the magic right there. If you can lock that in, that goes a long way for any performance for sure.
Yeah. That's one of our slow down tracks, though. We've been sitting on that for a while.
Gotcha.
I don't want to release that old version, though. We really need to revise it.
Well, surprise, we actually have a copy here. No, I'm just kidding. And then I guess tell us a little bit about new music you're working on. What are some of the things, you always kind of mention that it's going to be maybe a little more like K-Tronada-esque in the dancey elements, but what are some of the things you're working on right now that we can look forward to sound-wise in a little bit?
Yeah.
Well, me first?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, man, sound-wise, I don't know. I feel like I draw a lot of inspiration from different places. What a cop-out answer. But like I like hard rock, like metal. I like funk and disco. So one of the exercises that I've been doing recently, I just have a folder called Rough Ideas where I make a beat just really quick. So I'm not putting a ton of thought into it, and I just get the first draft of it up and out there. And after sifting back through that folder, I end up finding certain styles. Like I tend to lean more into boom bap just because that's like that's my safe space.
Yeah, that East Coast influence that you were talking about earlier.
I love it, and it's also a good tempo for like freestyling. So I'll do that sometimes just to like brainstorm ideas about whatever I want to talk about. And I guess not like really genre related, but like a writing exercise that I do is just finding a word of the day on like a dictionary, and preferably one that is not common, and trying to write a thematic verse based on the definition. So I have like a whole formula for at least getting one rough idea of a song out there by making like a quick beat and then writing a quick verse to it. And sometimes they end up making one of our Word of the Day series.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Which again, big fan of. I enjoy that quite a bit.
Thank you. Yeah, we're planning on sometime in the new year, 2025, releasing our first like Spotify version of the Word of the Day series, kind of like a compilation. Because as of now, all of those tracks, except for maybe 2, are just on social media.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get in the process of compiling them all and getting them out, kind of like a Tierra Whack World kind of idea.
Yeah.
It's just short little song ideas. So that's kind of something we're looking forward to. We got a couple tracks coming out in the next couple months. One on August 22 with Twan.
Twan.
Yeah, shout out Twan. That's one of our first dancier tracks that we're going to be releasing. And that's one that we had several sessions over the course of about 15 months. We didn't realize how, like, at our final session, we were like, we've been making the song for over a year. But it's one of those that we kind of sat on, we polished it up, rearranged it. And so we're really excited to drop that. We were just filming some social media promo last week. And so, yeah, that's kind of the first of our dancier tracks coming out. And we're also kind of keeping the same like boom bap, like 90s hip hop kind of feel with some other tracks. We have one coming out soon with Bobby Bars.
Shout out Bobby Bars.
Shout out Bobby Bars. And so we're kind of in a couple different avenues, but yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, definitely looking forward to all of that. And then I've got a couple more questions in this middle portion. For this next one, when it comes to going out and being live, doing all of that, do you guys have any like rituals or fun things you do before a show?
Heroin.
Nice.
No.
Nice.
The female version of a hero. Actually, we mainly do I guess like a vocal warm-up exercise to get our range warmed up. There's this one that we typically tend to go to because it's like 5-ish minutes and it's in our range. So we'll do that usually beforehand and staying hydrated. That's an important one.
Yeah.
Very important, especially if you're drinking Portland water, right?
Yeah. So yeah, that vocal warm up, definitely. Every time we come through and do a set, we always like plan our set according to the vibe of the night, the other artists that are going to be on the ticket. So I don't think we've ever done the exact same songs in the same order at a show. So just like planning that much in advance and then knowing like whether it's a show that we're going to be bringing out, the guitar for, or if it's going to be more rap heavy, or if it's going to be more like R&B sing-songy. So I think in that way we kind of like prep meticulously in advance and make sure that it's going to be the best fit for the night.
Hell yeah. And then I know you guys do music for some other artists sometimes live as well. How did that come to be? What does that look like? I haven't seen y'all live yet, and I'm definitely looking forward to in the near future. But tell us a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, so about maybe like a month and a half ago, we got a message from Twan, and he was like, "Hey, call me." I was like, "All right, cool. Maybe it's about
Twan."
Yeah, it's like maybe it's about the song we're working on or whatever." So we call him, and he's like, "Hey, so I have a show coming up, and I was wondering if you two could play some instruments for it." And I was like, "Yeah, I could pull out the guitar, K'dub'll on the sax. Like, when's the show?" He was like, "Oh, next week." I was like, "Oh, okay."
Boy.
And how many songs are we planning? Oh, the entire album you just dropped. So it was like, we just kind of like rushed into like hyperspeed mode, learning all of the tracks from his most recent project, which is an incredible album.
Phenomenal. Yeah, if y'all didn't listen to it after his episode, pause this again. No, just kidding. Listen to it after this.
Yes, The Offensive Tapes, Volume 1. But yeah, so it was really fun to have that challenge and kind of rise to the occasion. The show ended up turning out really well. We had it was a good turnout, good crowd for his album release party, and that's the first artist that we've actually been doing instruments for live. And had a great time with it.
Hell yeah. Oh yeah, no, I dig that.
Yeah.
Okay, and before we move on to the next portion, this next question is going to be individual answer, but it's probably the densest question in the interview. Now, we've talked a lot about, your experiences with music, the actions, the reactions, but on an individual level, when it's just you and the music one-on-one, what does music give back to you?
What does music give back to you? Wow. You prepared for this, didn't you? Man, I feel like, I don't even feel. Music is a universal language. So I aim for certain emotions that, like, I want to stir up within myself. Because I'll listen to certain tracks that I've heard many times and I'll still, like, tear up, or I'll still be, like, rapping really hard along with the artist. They just make you feel something, and you can't be everything for everyone, right? You gotta focus on one particular thing and do that to the best of your ability. And the other people who know and appreciate that, they'll recognize that and love the art the same way that you do. So I try and pour my passion into my art, and like sometimes I have really raw and honest tracks that I'm writing about. Other ones, like, it'll just be like maybe a beat and it makes me feel a certain way. Other times I'm rapping absolutely ludicrous stuff that's all lies, but it makes me feel great, So, yeah, music on a fundamental level is just like, I want to hit people in their soul, whether it's for the good or bad or both. That's what life is.
Yeah. Hell yeah. No, that's a great answer. Thank you for sharing that. And because of something you said, I remember when I was interviewing Miss L. Shout out Miss L. She said that she feels that music is the language of the soul. And that has just sat with me ever since she said it. And I think that really resonates well. So I just wanted to just kind of tap that in there based off of what you said. But then what about you?
Yeah, for me, I feel like music is... it's kind of a creative diary in a sense, that kind of it's a like a timestamp to a certain moment in my life when I was going through a certain thing or feeling a certain type of way. it's like as I go back and listen to older tracks, it's like, oh yeah, I remember like the mindset that I was in during that time. I remember exactly which street I was walking down as I wrote that verse. So I think it's a really cool process of just like channeling a lot of focus and creativity into something that I can remember and something that hopefully other people can resonate with. But yeah, I think first and foremost, I approach music as kind of a window to my soul. I often, end a writing session understanding a piece of myself even better than I did going into it. And I think a lot of that is through that refining process of just like being willing to get the thoughts out, refine them, and see, okay, what is the actual message that like my soul is trying to project here, and like sifting through and really kind of finding that message and leaving the verse in a place where I feel like it really resonates with me. Is like just such a fun process that I'm honored to get to do repeatedly. I don't plan to ever stop.
Hell yeah. No, I love that. I mean, you both had such good answers. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah. But now let's go ahead and we're going to move on to some hypothetical questions. And for these, sky's the limits. The questions are all made up, so the answers are allowed to be as well. But this first one is pretty straightforward.
Okay.
If the band could share a bill with any one act, the only requirement is they have to be alive, who would you each want it to be?
Oh, I already know.
Okay, you go first.
21 Pilots.
Perfect. Guys, get them on the horn.
Man, that was also my initial first thought. For the sake of giving a different answer, I would say K'dub'll.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, the duo. It's been one of my inspirations lately.
Did you all see them when they were here?
No,
I didn't either.
I didn't.
I was literally here doing an interview and I didn't realize it was on the same day and I made a mistake. I know.
Yeah, supposedly it was the best day ever.
So they say.
So they say.
So they say. Hell yeah. And then subsequently, who are local acts that y'all are aware of that you haven't gotten to share a stage with yet, but you would like to? Or I guess share a bill with?
Great question. Boca and Dante Thomas stick out right away. We saw them for the first time opening for Earth Gang. And ever since then, they just gave such a great performance. Got the crowd so engaged. We were definitely taking some mental notes. That is how you open a show in your hometown for a touring artist. So, yeah, I would love to share a ticket with them.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. Nosy, I suppose.
Okay.
Live.
Yeah.
Yeah. He has a good presence on the mic. And
yeah, shout out Nosy.
Yeah, I like his blend of spoken word poetry sometimes he does. Yeah, I feel like our vibes would probably match.
Yeah. No, super cool guy as well. Big fan.
Yeah.
And then for this next one, this is a fun one. Feel free to have fun with this.
All right.
If the band's music could be the soundtrack to any movie, what would you pick?
Probably the next Spider-Man Spider-Verse movie.
Okay. Super cool answer.
Okay.
Whatever the title of that is.
Yeah. TBD.
TBD, yeah. I'm going to give kind of an off-the-wall answer. I would say I would love to do something like the Magic School Bus.
Okay.
That was actually one of our largest inspirations for the Silly Bus, was just kind of creating this wacky world where, defying all reality, all sense of physics and how things actually work in this world. I think it would be really fun to just get super quirky and weird and make a whole bunch of crazy sounding tracks for something more animated and off the wall as that concept was.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Well, it's very, was it Anderson .Paak who did Yo Gabba Gabba?
Oh, really?
Don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure, but I know something along those lines. So yeah, that is a really cool approach.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then to wrap up the hypothetical questions, if you could each add one abstract instrument into the band, so, not drums, guitar, bass, things like that, but something that's a little out there, what would you add?
Oh, I already have an answer.
Go ahead.
Didgeridoo. Just when I'm freestyling, I always bring up that word.
It's a good one.
Sometimes I have to look up a picture of what it is. I'm like, what is a didgeridoo again? Just what
does it didgeridoo?
Yeah. Yeah, but I think because I keep freestyling about it, it must be of some importance to me. So
It is a very, I don't want to say one-sided instrument, but it's a very particular one.
it is, yeah.
Very particular
Very
instrument.
niche.
Jamiroquai is a big fan of the didgeridoo. Yeah. And what about you?
I would say the spoons. Actually, there was. I used to be in the school band in high school, and I was in the percussion section for a while. And there was this one song where I had a spoon solo, and my mom was like still has it on her YouTube page. She tells all her friends about it, like to this day, kind of a thing. But it was like one of the, just clicking two spoons back and forth. Yep. The one that we had just like had like a metal or a plastic handle to keep them kind of separated. But something nice about just like going back and forth. Like you can, I wasn't top tier by any means, but some people will like get the like off the leg, off the shoulder. Like you can move it around your whole body, and just one little clicking sound can become quite electric.
Yeah, damn, that might be the most unique answer to that question I've gotten yet. So thank you for that. Also, I wonder if there's the electric spoons anywhere out there.
Oh, yeah.
Like
a quarter inch.
Well, they have what was it? I think they have like an electric harmonica now.
Really?
Yeah. Again, don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure I saw something along those lines. But again, very interesting answer. All right. And with that being said, we're going to go ahead and start wrapping this up. What can we look forward to between, let's say, now and February?
I mean, I feel like we are in our single season mode. So I'm trying to drop singles once a month. Don't quote us on that.
That's the goal.
Yeah. We are set up for, I think, the next couple releases. So it's just a matter of picking out which ones we want to end the year with. And then, in the new year, we're going to drop that first volume of the Word of the Days.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The closest songs being released, August 22, Hideaway is coming out with Twan.
Oh, yeah.
Working on that one for a while. It's finally ready to release.
Definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah.
All right. And then for this next one, you guys go and look straight at the cameras and tell everybody how they can find you.
So you can find us on social media. We are at ofF.Brand. Spell out the dot. So it's OFF.Brand.
What he said.
And you can find our music on any streaming platform with the actual period, not spelling out the dot. So it's ofF.Brand. Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, wherever you find your tunes.
Hell yeah. And then any other plugs, any other shout outs, anybody else you'd like to put on while you're on here?
My parents. I'm still doing music because of you.
Technically, you still do keys as well, so.
I do, yeah. I know, man. I did not like keys. But I can't deny the importance of those lessons. Like, as much as I don't like theory, it is very helpful for song creation. Like knowing what chord progressions sound good. And all that. So also all my teachers, piano teachers, sax teachers. I mean, I took bassoon lessons for a bit and violin, but I don't do those anymore.
I didn't know that.
The Brett Domino Trio would appreciate you.
Yeah, I had a profile pic with the bassoon for a bit, but that's a hard instrument. Much respect to people who can play a double reed. I have one reed and I have enough trouble. So,
hell yeah. And then, did you have any before we move on?
Yeah. Shout out to my wonderful wife, who has been featured on a few off-brand tracks. Actually, in the Jungle Jam song right after Silly Bus. But also just like for supporting, for telling me when something I'm doing could be revised, and for putting up with all of the crazy sounds that come from our basement studio. And also, to my parents as well. Thanks for showing me the music world, and still supporting what I do to this day.
Wait, I have to add my wife too. I got her opinion on my outfit before I left.
Nice.
And I halfway guessed her opinion when I went upstairs and asked her, and she confirmed my suspicions. So thank you, wife, for making me look good.
She did a great job.
She did.
Yeah, she's great. She stopped us after a show recently and was like, we need to talk about your outfits. What about them? So she's like, you need to find a way to get a little bit more in sync with each other and just like thinking about how you're coming across visually. And we're like,
it goes a long way. Like I remember, who was I watching? Oh no, I can't remember the name of the group now. I'm sorry to the name of the group. I can't remember, but I was going to see a local group that's around here. Seance Crasher.
Okay.
Seance Crasher. Shout out to Seance Crasher. And they all they didn't have like matching per se, but they all had some form of something red on in a varying degree of shades and a varying degree of presentations. And like, it felt so together. So even though it wasn't like we're all going to wear a red shirt or we're all going to wear black pants, like they each had their own stuff, but just that little tie actually goes a long way for like a presentation.
Yeah.
And I know we're supposed to be wrapping it up, but I'm leaving this here for y'all. But with that being said, we do have one last question to go. But before we do, I'm going to steal the camera for just a second.
All right.
As always, y'all, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. And one more shout out to the Brothers Apothecary, Ronald Records, and Portland Water. Thanks for keeping us hydrated. And with that being said, the final question. And this is entirely up to your guys' interpretation. It'll also be individual answer. What is an album you feel is more on the obscure side? So it's a deep cut. It's one not a lot of people would know, but it's one you think everybody should know.
I would have to say Fly Exam by Jay Givens.
Okay.
One of the, an artist that I just feel like needs a lot more recognition.
No, I could agree.
His intense wordplay, the entendres are seemingly never ending, but just such a fun presence on the mic, great flows, great cadence, great storytelling. It's one of the albums that I was listening to, kind of as I was first starting to create music. So it was just one of those that I would consistently return to, and feels like each time I go back through it, there's a new nugget that I'm finding and appreciating in a different light.
Hell yeah. No, I'm not familiar with that particular album, but I am definitely familiar with that artist. That is a great rec.
Yeah.
And what about you?
Man, you want obscure? I'll give you obscure.
Okay.
John Rubin's album Word of Mouth. Got that in a bargain bin at the Family Christian Bookstore. And I just thought the cover art was super cool because it's him wearing a big marching band drum. And when you open the CD cover, you see there's a bunch of people following him, but you only get one snippet of that on the with the cover art. And the production on that album is very unique. So it is very it's a very particular sound.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure one of the songs samples a doorbell. And yeah, I think one of the tracks made it on a Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Okay.
I listened to that project quite a bit growing up just because it was so odd.
Yeah.
But the production on it's really nice, and the vocal delivery is unique. So yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, that's definitely one I'm not familiar with, so I am super excited to check it out. Thank you guys both for the recs. And with that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's so great to be here.
Hell yeah. And this has been another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. I'm Jimmy.
I'm Chef Jefe.
I'm K'dub'll.
And we're signing off. Later, y'all.
That's a wrap.
This is not a podcast. This is a show.
Keep jamming.